This is a quick video on how to use the Look Development Studio and a very quick introduction to PBR shading and shader graph in Unity. So the Look Dev Studio, at the moment it's still a prototype, so it is not a finished product, but it can be downloaded already and it can be used by anyone. So if you just Google Unity Look Dev Studio, you will be presented with this website. And here, if you scroll down, you can download HDRP project or a Universal Render Pipeline project. So in my case, I downloaded already the HDRP project and I added it to my Unity hub. And from there, you can just open the project and you will be presented with this Unity project. So as you can see, it is basically a standard Unity project, but it has been simplified somehow, and the user interface has changed a little bit. This lookdev Studio splash window, I mean, from here you can just get some feedback. You can just go to the forum and you can watch some tutorials as well. I haven't used any of these yet, so the way it works, by looking at the interface, here you have your hierarchy, kind of the same as in any Unity project, and it has been populated already with some objects. So we have lights, cameras, post-process, and models. Here we have the viewport, of course, and down there we have a little bit of options for the lookdev context. We're going to have a look at that in a minute. Here on the right, we have basically a menu where we can import content into the project. So we have materials, textures, objects, shader graphs, lights. This one is HDRIs and animations. And so let's just grab any of these objects. These came with the project, so I guess they are just samples. So let's take a look at one of them. So I'm going to drag and drop that fire extinguisher right in the middle. And this is basically what you get. So now, as you can see here in the hierarchy under models, you have the prefab for the fire extinguisher. This is just a regular prefab, so you can do whatever you want with it. I'm not going to modify it. And then you can move your camera, of course. So I'm just, framing the object in the way that I like. And what you can do once you have a camera that you like, let's say that I have this camera that I like. Here I have camera presets, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So with one selected, well, let's frame the object. With one selected, I'm going to click on Save Camera. So now this one has been saved. So now you can go to camera 2, for example. And let's do, I don't know, a camera like this. And then we can just save camera. So now if we go to camera 1 and camera 2, we have those camera presets. So, we can modify this at any time, create a new preset, or just go back to the original. So we can do renders from the different camera view all the time. So we are consistent when we do render iterations or lookdev iterations. Okay. What else? Down here, we have this HDRI sky. So if we click this button or this toggle, we can see the HDRI in the background. Otherwise, we don't see it. Then we have an option for fog. Then we have an option, let me go back to my camera, for orbiting the camera. So if I enable that one, the camera is spinning around the object. Or we can do the opposite. We can just enable turntable. And now it is the object rotating within the frame of the camera. So very convenient for, turntables and checking out your look devs. Then we also have show ground, so we can have this ground with a contact shadow or shadow catcher shader. And then we have this snap ground to object. So as you can see, when we move the object, the ground automatically snaps to the object. Cool. And then we have this rotate light as well, so we can rotate the lighting at any given time. So those are basically the options. Let me set this one back to 0. What else? Oh, sorry, we have a couple of more things up here. So we have the lighting preset. So we have blue sky, we have charge, city night, I mean, just a few lighting presets that you can use. Some of the most common ones like studio, blue sky, and overcast, like charge, for example, works very well. So, you can use any of these for your look devs. And those HDRIs live here. So here you see the HDRIs that this thing is using. For example, right now I'm using the blue sky. Let's set this one to charge, for example. I'm using that one there. But if you go to lights, there is also a directional light that at any point you can change its properties here. You can actually disable it. So now I'm using only the HDRI, or you can just enable it. And here, as you can see, you can control the temperature, you can control the intensity and whatnot. So everything is here for you. If you're wondering if you can create your own lighting presets, you cannot. Actually, you can, but it's not very simple. I mean, there is no user interface control to do that. There are interfaces to create lighting presets that don't involve HDRIs, but if you want to get something extra here with different HDRIs, you cannot do that. Or you can, but you need to go under the hood. Okay, so I'm not going to explain how to do that now. And maybe I should say also that this lookdev studio, again, it is just in beta. So, they are probably getting feedback and they are going to make it better. I believe that it doesn't give you enough control. So I don't think I would use it unless you have an asset, a character, whatever asset it might be, with plug and play textures, meaning that you have your base color, your normal, your smoothness, metallic, whatever it might be, right? And the only thing you need to do is connect those maps and do not modify anything at all. If that is the case, great. I think this works very well and it has a lot of potential. And again, this is just in beta and I think it's going to be much better in the future. But for now, let's just pretend that or my advice would be like use it only if you have a plug and play asset. Otherwise, you can kind of create this in your Unity project anyway. So quickly, let me go to my models and I'm gonna get rid of this fire extinguisher. How do you import your own assets? So go to geometry, which is this cube here, or model. I think I do have, let me see. Yeah, I have this sphere here. So this is just a sphere, but just pretend that this is actually, a very nice looking asset. So you drag and drop that one there, or actually you can also copy this path and go to import and then just paste that path and select the asset. Okay, so when you do that, it appears here, as you can see, sphere 2 tiles. And then you get also this window automatically that is called texture allocator. So this one is going to inherit all the material IDs from the 3D software. In my case, it's only one, so I only get one. And then you get different texture channels where you can input your textures. As you can see here, you get base color, mask map, normal map, bend normal, detail map, code mask, and emissive color. So I'm going to go to textures, which is here, and I'm going to import. And I'm going to import these textures. So let's import all of them. I think I'm importing more textures than the ones that I need, but who cares? Okay, so let's now drag and drop the textures to the corresponding slot. So base color would be this one. So if I drag and drop, I get my texture there. Here, as you can see, you can actually look at the shader, but there are things that are not really available and all of that. So again, even though you can access to things, what I would say is do not. Where is this guy? Yeah, do not use this unless it is just plug and play. If you need to modify things, I would say this is not the best place because you're gonna get a little bit frustrated because some things are grayed out and you cannot change it. Like here, right? It's like, oh, I would like to change styling, but then of course you need to enable those overrides and whatnot. So yeah, I think they need to expose a little bit more everything that you can access to, but again, if you need to do like a complex shader graph or whatever, I wouldn't use this. Okay, then let's use our normal map, which is this guy. Normal map, there you go. So now we get like proper normals. But it's kind of the same thing, right? It's like, oh, what if I need to tweak the intensity of this normal map? Where should I go? Well, all of that is not exposed in a nice way. So if you don't know anything at all about Unity, you wouldn't be able to do it, or you wouldn't know how to do it. So those are the things that I would like to see exposed here. But anyway, then we need roughness or smoothness, I would say, because Unity doesn't use roughness, it uses smoothness. Then we need also metallic map, and then we need an occlusion map, I guess, and I mean, whatever, right? Whatever you need for this asset. So and this is a good opportunity to introduce the mask map, because you can see that here there is a mask map, but actually there is no input for a metallic map, or there is no input for a smoothness map, right? Smoothness being the invert of a roughness map for those of you coming from visual effects. So in games or in real time in general, we use something that I guess it has different names, but some people call it packed textures or packing textures, and those are basically different channels to store, or not different channels, sorry, different textures store into one single file in each of its different texture channels. So for example, this mask map, let me take a look here. This masked map, I have it here, masked map. I'm gonna open that one with Photoshop so we can have a quick look at how it looks. But it is basically the same. It always expects the same textures in the same channels. It is not like in visual effects, we don't usually do this. I mean, we usually tend to pack texture maps or isolation maps. So we have a mask for the nose of a character, another mask for the forehead, and another mask for the jaw. Then yeah, we combine those like red channel, green channel, and blue channel into one single file to save texture files. But for other channels like specular, SSS, IOR, whatever it might be, we don't usually store that information in different channels. We usually go with one, maybe just one single channel. Maybe the information is in the red channel, like the roughness map, but that would be its own texture file. We don't usually store in multiple. But in Unity or in games in general, but in real time in general, but in Unity in particular, when you see this mask map, it means that Unity is expecting something very particular, which is this. So here I have one texture file. This is just one texture file, but it combines 4 different textures in, the 4 different channels: red, green, blue, and alpha. So if we take a look at the red channel, this is the red channel. The red channel stores the metallic map. Basically, whatever is metallic in the object, it is white here. And whatever it is not metallic, it is black. And as you know, metalness or the metallic property, it is 1 or 0. There is nothing in nature that is half metallic, okay? So black and white. Then the green channel, which is this one, this is the ambient occlusion map. So in games and in other real-time applications, they use a lot of ambient occlusion baked into the textures, and it is being used by the shader. We never do this in visual effects, right? Because that's why we use ray tracing with global illumination. But in games, they tend to use it quite a lot. So in the green channel, we store the ambient occlusion. Then in the blue channel, we store masks, or what they call a detail map. So yeah, this is just a mask, which actually which you could use to reveal something like dirt or something on top of these textures, but I'm not using it. So that's what I just wrote mask as a placeholder. And then the alpha channel, stores the smoothness map, which is basically the invert of the roughness map that we tend to use in visual effects. So when you look at everything together, it looks like that, which is a little bit wonky, but Unity is going to understand this. So we just need to drag and drop that one to the mask map. There you go. And now we're getting everything together. And for this specific asset, we don't really need anything else. Or maybe this emissive color map. Okay, and we don't have any other channels, so we don't really have to use those things. Okay, cool. So yeah, as you can see, this is working, and now you can just rotate the lighting around if you want to, but you can see the normals are working, the metallic, the metalness is working, the smoothness is working, everything is okay. But again, you are a little bit limited when it comes to change things, because now you would have to tweak this material if you wanted to tweak this material. So it is not the best right now, right? Because you would have to, oops, sorry, not that. You would have to create like overrides here. And again, if you don't really know anything at all about Unity, if the only thing you want to do is test your asset, it's a little bit hard to do here. Down here you have animation controls, and these are because you can also bring animated characters, let's say, to this lookdev studio, like a walking cycle of a character, so you can lookdev while you do the lookdev. Yeah, and I believe this is it really. Oh, maybe I can show you one latest thing. If you go to here to light, let me change this one to charge. I think charge is fine. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to lights. I'm going to disable this one, and maybe I can create a CG light here. So I'm going to take this tube light and drag and drop. There you go. So now we have a tube here that you can manipulate in the viewport. You can change the color and whatever you need to do with that one. I'm gonna take this one also, this rectangle, and do maybe something like that. Okay, let me go back to my camera. Oops. Of course, that camera was meant to be used with with the fire extinguisher. Okay, so this is your lighting, and you can do whatever you want, right? You can create this spotlight and kind of the same deal. You can illuminate this as you want. I'm gonna change that one to looks. Okay, so let's pretend this is my lighting, even though it doesn't make any sense. But what you can do, you can create a preset with this lighting. So you can select these 3 lights here that you use for lighting your lookdev studio. Now you can just right click and you can click on create lighting preset. And yeah, as you can see, you can generate a preview from here. So I'm going to call this one maybe Swan. I'm going to generate a preview. There you go, and save lighting preset. Okay, so now you have a Swan thing here. So if you go to, let's say, gray sky, sorry, or blue sky, or green cave, or whatever, you see that the only light here is a directional light plus the HDRI. By the way, where is my material? Did I forget to save it or something? Yeah, I don't know, maybe. Anyway, we lost the material, but it's not a big deal. Let's just use this one. Right. So yeah, I was saying like now you can go to this profile or this preset, and then you get the lighting that you were expecting. But again, to change the HDRI and add it to a preset, that is a different story. You cannot really do it with the user interface. So again, this lookdev studio, I think it's a pretty good idea, but still very limited in my opinion. So yeah, let's make it a little bit better in the future. These guys here, these presets, as you can see, you can control them. Like you can go to any of these materials, and here you can change everything. So you can just you assign that one. Now here you can change things as well, right? So of course you can just go also to textures and drag and drop your textures here, and then you will get a little bit more of control, because here you can actually manipulate the shader. Where is my normals? So I can take my normals here in this case, and you know, I can increase my normals if I feel like I need to. I set this one to 3. Where is my mask? There you go, my mask map. You can take this one here. Okay, you can control the tiling perhaps. Cool. And yeah, I mean, basically this is how you use it. You have remaps as well here for the different channels, but if we made this correct in the Substance Painter, everything should kind of work. You can change the space as well for the normal map, depending on how you bake them. I mean, you have the usual controls here, right? So that kind of works, right? So let's yeah, let's move on. This is basically the lookdev studio, which again, it is in beta, but it has a lot of potential, and hopefully it will be ready 100% very, very soon. So when you have a material that is basically plug and play, meaning that, you know, your textures are looking perfect and the only thing you need to do is connect them to the shader, well, you just create a new material. I'm going to call this one Swan material. And you set this one to, in this case, high definition render pipeline lead, but it can be, you know, anything you might need. In my case, it's high definition render pipeline lead. And then you have your base color, you have your metallic property, your smoothness property, your mask map that I show you how to use already. And yeah, so basically, if you just drag and drop, that would be my base map. This will be my mask map. Okay. And then my normal map. And I think I do have an emission as well. So that would be my emission color. Okay. So now, and we can take the tiling as well. So let's say here 2 and 2. Okay. So if we assign this one to this object, this is how it looks. Okay, so it looks as expected, I guess. Am I using screen space reflection? I think I am. Okay, cool. So this should be working fine. Cool. And this is just with path tracing, which we're not using because it's quite expensive. Okay, so we have this material, and yeah, I mean, everything kind of works, right? I'm not sure if this is mapped correctly, or I think it is, but maybe, oops. I think I broke it. But what if instead of using this plug and play workflow, you actually want to create a more complex shading network as you do in, you know, any offline renderer? Well, then you need to create a shader graph first. So you can just go to create shader high definition render pipeline, and here you can create any type of shader graph. So I'm gonna go for lead shader graph. I'm gonna call this one Swan shader graph. Okay. Then if you double click here, you jump into the shader graph that you can dock anywhere. But you still need to assign a shader to this shader graph because this is just the container. So basically you can do it in two ways. You can just create from here, you can just right click and create a material and it will be hooked automatically. Or you can just create a material that I'm going to call shader graph material. And then with the material selected, you can go to shader, go to shader graph and select the shader graph that we just created before. There you go. So now it's hooked. So I can assign this material there. And of course, it's going to be just like a gray material. But if we go inside of the shader graph, here we can change whatever we want. So if we change the color here and save the asset, it is going to change. The problem there is nothing wrong with this, but of course you can also expose parameters for the user so that they can basically change it here. Right now, if you go to expose parameter, it's empty, there is nothing there. So you can expose any parameters there. So basically this shader graph window has what we call the blackboard, which is basically this thing here. This is where you create parameters to be exposed. Then we have the graph inspector that allows you to, well, change the settings for the graph or for a node. Right now we don't have a node. So if we create a node with right click, create node, let's create, let's say a color. And we can just create a basic color. So when we select this one, we have options here. If we create, let's say a multiply, we have options here. And and some other nodes, more complex nodes, we have more options. Right, so this color, right, we can just connect it here, and now we would be replacing that color with this other color. So if we save, we would get that color there. Here again, you can just create different type of parameters. So if you create a color from here, let's call this one base color, for example. Then we can drag and drop here. We can get rid of this one. And when we select this one, as you can see, we have options there. So we can connect that one to the base color. The name is the name of the node. The reference is the name of this node in the under the hood. Basically, if you open the shader with a text editor, this is the name. They usually recommend to do underscore and then the name. Then here you can change the color. So let's go to green. And then we have default or HDR. In this case, we just want default HDR if we want to use something like emission shader. And then we have single half or just inherit, which is usually what I use. So now if you save this one, it has that color. But now with the benefit that you can select the shader, and here if you go to expose properties, you have the color exposed for the user. So there is no need to go inside and change anything at all. And this is usually what we want to do. There is no need, of course, to expose absolutely everything, but whatever we need to tweak. And then from here, we can get into creating shaders, complex shaders in another time. This is just a quick introduction, but basically you can go right click, create node, and here you have everything you need. So if you go to math, here you have the usual divide, multiply, and whatnot. You can also type here what you want to do. So you can do like a subtract, for example. You can subtract to inputs, same as any other shader editor, really. Something very cool here is that you can tweak vertex information here, and then you can tweak the shading components here. So here you have the usual base color, normal, metallic, whatnot, but here you would have like vertex information. So if you want to animate objects based on shading, it's a little bit separated from the actual look of the object, which is quite cool. By the way, and down here you have a preview of how this thing is going to look like. So you create, let's say, something like a checkerboard, and you connect this one to the base. You should get a preview here. And as you can see, it has hooked already like coordinates and everything, which is great. So you don't have to do that by yourself. By the way, you can create multiple shaders that use the same shader graph, which is quite cool. So this one, if you duplicate this one, let's say So the base color goes here. So that one is blue, but you can duplicate this one and assign this one, let's say, I'm gonna add it to the floor, or no, actually, let me do it to that one. So you can select this one and change the color to something like red. And because this is just like an instance, basically you're tweaking the expose parameter. Both shaders can use the same shader network, but you can control them independently. That is very useful. Right. Then, yeah, there are procedurals, there are everything. Just take a look at here and, you know, to do the most common shading operations. You can also, if you want to use textures, then you can go to, what is this? I don't know what it is. I always do a sample texture 2D. So this is basically how you do it. So you can expose this one to the base color. Sorry, connect that one to the base color. And then if you want to expose the textures and the UV, want to get rid of this one, the texture and the UV, you can maybe just not the UV, sorry, because if you want a tile, then you might need a tiling and offset. So then you might need to connect this one to the UV. So now you can expose parameters here. So if you click here, you can just create a texture 2D. And let's call this one base color texture, for example. Then we can use this one here and connect it there. And here we have the name. Okay, that's all good. And then for the tiling, you can maybe create a vector 2. And we can connect this one to the tiling. There you go. And I'm gonna set this one by default 1 and 1, and we can call this UV tile. Okay, something like that. So you can save this one. And now, if you go to the material, now you have exposed parameters here. So here now you have your texture. So you can just click there and select any texture. Let's select that one. Cool. And then the UV tile. So if you set this one to 2, then you are tiling this one 2 times or 5 times. And yeah, same to the other one. We can select this one, and because they are instances, then for this one you can just select like a different texture and it will work as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it about this introduction. This is how you would use shader graph combined with different shaders. And again, now it's just a matter of exploring everything that is here to create different effects and what not. But yeah, this is basically how you start with all of that.